right, folks. So here we are, season 2. It's a wrap. So yeah,
Sure.
before we officially dive into 2026 now, let me just talk about one last thing from 2025, right? And it's because of when this show was released. Yeah, I really, really couldn't get the time to talk about it, even though I really wanted to. But people are still talking about it, and I mean it's for obvious, for obvious reasons, right? So yeah, before we jump into some 2026 shit, let me talk about that. Let me talk about some 2025 shit, right? Yeah, I'm gonna talk about our final season of Stranger Things, man.
Right.
I finished the final season just a few days ago, and just giving some quick thoughts on it. And I'll say something about the show itself and why it exists and why it is the way it is. And yes, and I am aware that people are going on the net and talk about, oh, this final season was bad, and the series finale was terrible, and all these kind of things, right? But there's something that I just was thinking about while I was recapping the show, because yes, I recapped the first 4 seasons because it's the final season, so I just want to go back to the very beginning and just see how the story played out, right? And I'm glad I did, right? Because for me, I was just able to appreciate the show a lot more, right? And I know that for many people who go online and, talk about what they didn't like about the final season, I know that half of them, with the Netflix subscriptions couldn't even be bothered to just recap the first 4 seasons, right? They have lives and, they have money to make off of YouTube, right? So they don't really care, right? So that's why they could just go into season 5 and be like, I don't understand this, and oh gosh, I don't remember about what happened in the last season and this thing and that thing and that thing, right? But because I saw it from the very beginning, I was like, oh, okay, I'm familiar mostly with what it is that's going on, right? So I'll begin with this, right? And this is not gonna be I don't even need to do a synopsis of it, right? But for me, right, I enjoyed the season. I thought that it was a satisfying way to end, this entire series, right? But yes, it is a show that just got too long in the tooth. Because this thing started in 2016, right? And I mean, production started in 2015. The main actors were kids. They were 10 to 12. You know what I mean? Like Finn Wolfhard, who was.
They were, because I think so the main guy he's things he had to be 16, I think, but he's one of the older actors, right?
Who Finn Wolfhard, right? As in who played Mike.
Right.
Yeah, who played Mike? He's 23.
He's 23.
He said that in SNL. Okay, yeah, I watched last night's episode. Because they were gonna poke fun at the fact that hey, Stranger Things is done, and as he says in the opening bit, right? You literally saw him grow up over the course of 10 years, right? Because, production started in 2015, but the show came out in 2016, right? I think Millie Bobby Brown started when she was 10. I think she's 20 now, or she's in she early 20s at the point, right? And everybody else, right? Caleb and Gaten, they are in the early 20s. Everybody in the early 20s now, right?
Right, yeah, she's 21 now, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? So, for me, I enjoy the season for what it is, right? But yes, this is a show in general that just ran way too long, right? But to be fair, right? COVID happened, right?
Right.
But because of that, right? And this is where we got season 4 now, which at the time I felt very overwhelmed by because of how long the episodes were, right? Because these episodes were running at an hour, 15 minutes, or close to an hour and a half, you know what I mean? And then when it came to the finale of season 4, that was 2 hours. That was 2 hours, right? And same thing with this season here, with season 5, right? The final episode is roughly 2 hours long, right? But because it's a series finale, I can let that slide. And I will say, in terms of the runtime, it was tolerable. Because of season 4, I was acclimatized to the long runtime, right? And I felt like just in terms of pacing and flow, I felt like this season was a lot smoother than the last one, right? The last one was just oh my god, we're really doing these long episodes? All this serious? You know what I mean? But even then, it still moved at a certain pace, right? But this one I felt was a lot tighter, right? In terms of getting the point across with the narratives and whatnot, right? Of course, I mean the performances are great across the board, and I mean the reason why well, I would say many people love the show, or at least tolerate the show, is because of the cast, right, and the chemistry that they
Right.
have, right. Everybody is just so likable, right. Whether it's the adults like Winona Ryder or David Harbour, the young adults, what I mean, like like Maya Hawke or Natalie Dyer, for
My
example.
Hawk, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, who I
Right.
was reminded just the other day is the daughter of Ethan Hawke and Uma
Right.
Thurman.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, right,
I
shit.
think career wise she might be the most thing other than Millie Bobby Brown. She would like also be pretty big because again she's like she is the nepo baby. Like she's
That's
double
true.
nepo.
Yeah, boy, yeah, boy,
Double nepo. Yeah. So
yeah.
I mean, is a show that I never get into to myself, to be honest, because I just feel so. I was like at that point I was pretty sick of the whole '80s nostalgia stuff. But like whatever, it's a good show. And what happens that Welcome Dairy exists, so it's like, yeah, well, is this it? Is this instead? Um, I
But
don't know,
I
but
just
yeah,
find that so ironic, right? That
yeah,
on nearing the end of the final season, right? Because they do the whole 2-part thing, and then they decide to just put out the series finale on All Year's Day, right? Yeah, right around that time, HBO was like, oh, the fuckers, all they think all this smart, right? Boom, Welcome to There, right? And I'm gonna talk about HBO in a bit, right? But yeah, it's just so ironic now that the show that is based on the book that is the
right.
inspiration behind Stranger Things comes out and turn out to be so
And
stellar, right?
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's more like a that's how it's done kind of thing. There. I mean, that's how it feels. But
Yeah,
well, it's fine.
yeah.
But yeah, this show is a cultural phenomenon. I'm not sure how it'll be remembered in the long run. Long run, like I don't think like the Duffer Brothers is what do you call them, D&D or
Oh
anything
yeah,
like
them
that.
them dudes who did who put
Game of Thrones.
yeah,
What is the name?
which oh gosh, I forget the
DB White
names.
and
And
DB White sound and something and something. D&D. I just know them as D&D.
DB Weiss, and I forgot the other guy's name
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right
They
now.
went on utterly F it up. But that's more like a behind the scenes reasons as to why that played out the way it did. I don't think they're hacks or anything like that. It's just like, yeah, the problem is that when this stuff's so derivative, the probability of you adding anything really interesting to it is thing. I mean, this is a general problem with the big with these big franchises or derivatives of franchises. Same thing with Star Trek and Terry Metalis. And then oh yeah, right. Well, Kathleen Kennedy out, so we get what's his name take over now, Filoni. And yeah, again, he be probably knowing his track record, probably gonna get more of that. Like I like Filoni, but like I admit it, he's pretty derivative. Let's admit that he's a
Yeah,
fanboy on through and through. Like, so is he
true.
is he fanboyism? Is he fanboyism gonna kind of run the template for a little while? I think for the next 3 to 5 years, it's gonna be kind of fanboyism bullshit we're gonna be getting for a little too much. Because all these people who get mad at when something too different or too strange, the reaction still thing the reactionary crowd kind of win the day, unfortunately, I think. So is that however. But yeah, finish your point about Stranger Things. I mean, it's a show that I appreciate it because it's reasonably well made and all the people who come out to it are stars. Like I think what's her name, Enola Holmes, is a legit star. I want to see more from her.
Yeah,
Um,
my
you know,
concern now is she going to stay with Netflix? Because yeah,
right.
during them 10 years she was working on Stranger Things. She just kind of
Well,
stayed in the Netflix nest. You know
but
me?
I'm not necessarily a bad thing. Like to me, at least, But I'll admit a bias in that sense. But yeah, whatever, we'll see. But it's just whether or not the other stars what they're gonna do or how they're gonna operate going forward or what gonna happen. Like, I really don't think. I think some of them gonna vanish or disappear. Others gonna be like pretty good again. I think really the only two people I think gonna really blow up is Hawk and Bobby Brown. Like them is the only two I think I could see really, really doing something like really like impressive or special going forward. Everybody else, I ain't seen anything great. But I could be wrong. Other people, they disprove me. I think is, how watching how Euphoria play out now and how that wrapping up too. I think soon. I think this new season is the last one. I think so. Stuff like that, right? So there's this new crop of stars if they're good or how things gonna play out and who's the big star, whatever it is. So that's about that. Anyway, go ahead, go ahead. I wanted to mention something else, but I'll mention it after.
Okay, yeah, and note to self, I really should get on to the Euphoria train because I have not started as yet. But now that you tell me this one could be the final one, I'll confirm
I
that.
think it is. Yeah,
I'll
I know a new season coming, but I can't remember if it is the final season.
Okay, but yeah, and also too, I felt like with each season though, like the visual effects, right, just the production design just stepped up, right, and this one, boy, they just outdid themselves, right.
Yeah, very much.
Legit, my jaw hit the floor because I don't think that they worked on the last season, right. Yeah, they got Weta and ILM to work on this one. And when you see the visual effects, it's like, yeah, because these are some of the best visual effects I've seen in this show. But none, like they look great. Whether you're in the Upside Down or just the stuff in Hawkins, just how everything looks. It just looks so cinematic, right? Put a pin on that word, cinematic. I'll double back on that in a bit, right? Now I will admit, right, even though I enjoy the show, right, and I will say it is one of my, I would say, like, just from season 1 to 5, like I thoroughly enjoyed, right. That's not to say that this season isn't flawed, right? Because it is, right? So for me, and this is something that apparently not a lot of people really brought up. Linda Hamilton was in this final season. She was like a villain, right? Well, she was a villain. Sorry.
Right.
She's like this military person, right? Yeah, they didn't do much with her at all. Like she was just there to just be menacing and rough up, a few soldiers and tell them, do your job and all that kind of stuff, right? But other than that, she just served no purpose in the show outside of just sending soldiers to their doom. That's really what it was, right? So there's a moment where they bring up Dr. Brenner, right, who is played by Matthew Modine. He was like the main villain in the first 4 seasons, but he died. I mean, no shock there, right? No spoiler there, in the last season, right? Yeah, so they was basically saying that he was doing, well, we know that he was trying to figure out the whole upside down stuff, and he was taking these kids and pretty much giving them psychic powers. So that's how 11, aka Elle, become who she is, right? But they mentioned something in terms of like what the big reveal was, right? And how it relates to the main villain, that'll be Vecna, right? This sort of like Freddy Krueger inspired. He's like Freddy Krueger mixed with Pinhead, this guy from this alternate dimension who wanted to destroy the world and all that kind of stuff, right? We need these kids to do it, and it's a long story, right? But there's a moment where they say how Brenner was like aware of what was going on, like like trying to connect this stuff from the very beginning, right? But the show never really stopped to say how he even found out about the upside down in the first place, right? So in the last season, we learned that this guy who was working with Brenner by the name of Henry, right? Henry is actually Vecna, right? And that was a big reveal, like really big reveal. Right. I will admit, right? But they still never took the time to say how Brenner even like decided, hey, now I know about this dimension. Let me do my thing now. Like there was still no connective tissue between that reveal in terms of what was really going on with the Upside Down to why Brenner was doing all these experimentation with the kids in the first place. It was just left it was just left unresolved or like unexplored, I should say, right? And I felt like, the show could have taken a little time to explore these things, but they didn't because they got carried away with, and this is like one of the main gripes that a lot of people have now, the overwhelming amount of visual effects and big extravagant set pieces and whatnot, right? One involving this, the Mind Flayer who was introduced in the first season, this gigantic spider character and all that, and it's just like, oh my god, like all this drama.
I see people complain about it because it spend a ton of money. It could look way different from what it was from before now. A lot of people prefer the simpler design.
With the more cloudish, the more foggish looking version in terms of like a legit kaiju that it was, right? So yes, I would admit this is more of a substance over style kind of scenario where, okay, like we have the money, we have the budget, we want to end things off, we want to give you the fireworks, but not just fireworks, we want to give you explosions and boom and shit, right? But at times it really does overwhelm the story and the characterization as well too. So yes, characters kind of feel like, hey, people make the criticism with that final action sequence. It really does feel like you're watching a video game, right? Play out. And kind of minor spoiler. Yeah, they what I say, the Duffer Brothers do. Like, okay, I understand the last season, Eddie, Eddie Munson, and still I would confess, yes, he is one of the best characters in the show, bar none. I was a few days old when I was reminded that he played Johnny Storm in that Fantastic Four movie. It's like, oh shit, that was Like shit,
right.
shit, right? I
Right,
didn't
right. I
even
forget
realize
he
that.
come out. I forget he come from Stranger Things.
Yeah, but yeah, he died in that, and it was a big deal.
Right.
But I don't know if it is that the Duffers were like, okay, we don't want to kill nobody else because people will get mad at us because it's the final season and they won't forgive us, and they'll go on Reddit and say, fuck the Duffers because they killed my favorite character. But yeah, everybody like lived though. Although there's one character who is hinted at of dying, I'm not gonna say who is kind of obvious who it is, but how they I love the ambiguity that they give the character in terms of okay, maybe that character is dead or maybe that character isn't. I want to believe that that character isn't, but I wouldn't be surprised if that character is dead, right? I like how they do that. That was really clever. And I will say just that final sequence was great though in terms of just showing us where the characters go from there, and especially with our leads, yeah, they're grown up now, so they have to move on, and then the next generation comes in, and the story begins again, kinda. You know what I mean? So it's like that. I love how they do that, right? But yeah, and I also love the ambiguity in terms of the characters, life and whatnot, right? But yeah, and listen, I'm really not gonna waste any time in terms of the nitpicks that people had, like, oh, why how like one of the big examples, right? This Demogorgon, for example, taking a lot of firepower from the military, and the soldiers getting wiped out, and yet Mike's mom, right, smashes a wine bottle and kills one. How is that possible, right? Yeah, a lot of people
Yeah,
touch on that,
and all the
are
characters
you
would be
serious?
like
Like,
magical.
you know what I mean?
And
Yeah.
it would be implicitly magical or something like that. Like that is why they could do this.
Yeah, listen, given the context of the scene, it's like, okay, I understand why that happened, but I not gonna stop to be like, oh, well, this one got killed like this, so how come firepower not killing these others? I don't know, I don't really care, right? I just want to see the show wrap up. In my head, it was just about, like, I just wanted the Duffers to just stick the landing, and I felt like for the most part that they did, right? But yes, this is a season that and I would say it's the same with many other final seasons, right? Especially when it comes to sci-fi, especially with sci-fi, yeah. I will tell you, like, okay, like for example, right? Forgive me, fans of this show, Fringe, for example. That's a show that I really enjoy as well, right? But as the show went along, it just got more and more and more convoluted with its own conceit and world building, to the point that when it's done, it's like, yeah, I like the end. I really appreciate the end. But that's not a show I could go back to in a hurry, because now I had to like mentally like put all these points in my head and remember all these things by the time you reach the final season. That's how I felt with this show as a whole. There's all these points about, these alternate dimensions and these creatures and all these kind of things, right? So yes, while you watch the final season, it is convoluted AF, right? But it's never too convoluted to the point that you don't understand a single thing that's going on, right? Because it's more thematic and more character driven. Yeah, you're just sort of like, so to sum it up is like this, right? When you watch it, it makes logical sense, in quotes, right? But if somebody was to stop you and ask you, yeah, explain that final season to me, like, I can't. I can't. I just can't explain it to you. It's just something that if you've been watching from the beginning, like I have, or at least you're familiar with the show enough, you could get what you could have an idea of what's going on. But at the same time, there's a lot that goes a little too much, and at times it's to the detriment of the character development and the story that's being told, right? But it's like, you know what? Final season, they had to wrap it up. Characters getting older. I get it, right? The actors, sorry, it is what it is, right? So I will not come out and say that this is like a perfect season. No. So if fans think it's the worst one, okay, fine, whatever. But I'm not like some big super fan to say, I'm not gonna be obsessing over this show after I talk about it, right? Like Fallout season 2 is going on right now. I'm gonna jump back into Fallout. I'm actually gonna recap the first season of Fallout, right? And Stranger Things will be a thing of the past, right? But I just want to talk about it now, before we move on, right? So that's the point I want to make before I get to my final thoughts and rating on the season and the series, right? I think at the end of the day, who really wins in this whole with this whole entire run, well, not run down, the entire run of the show itself, right, is Netflix. Netflix is the winner in this entire show, this entire series run. Is Netflix. This is Netflix showing. This is us at the height of our powers, Jen. That we could trust these two guys who never like put out a show before or film before, but just was so passionate about their love for 80s films and Stephen King novels that we are just gonna give them a chance. The first season kickoff 2016, everybody loved it. I talk about it when it came out then, and because their ambition grew high, just got bigger and bigger. Yeah, we're gonna make the show bigger and bigger as well too, right? And yeah, that's why with every passing season, the budget gets bigger, the scope gets bigger, the ambition is bigger, right? But yeah, with that final season, it was just Netflix basically saying, yeah, like listen, we can legitimately give you cinematic experiences right here in the comfort of your home, Like, I mean, they've been and this is something that I will make the argument they was playing around with since COVID, right? That's why you had these movies like Red Notice. I think whatever the name of that show was. You already Rock and Ryan Reynolds and them.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
like them kind of saying, oh yeah, let me just give people the cinematic experience because they're home, right? Okay, let me do that. Let me pump some money into the budgets. Yeah, let me try that, right? But I will say that I will make the argument. I could be wrong, but I would say that Stranger Things was a show that it was really iron on. Like, okay, people love this show. Here's what: if we could just make this thing as cinematic as possible, there we could drop that bombshell. Or I could say this was like the this kind of them testing the waters out, right? So like, okay, people like season 4, people like how cinematic it is, right? Okay, I like that. And then they drop that bombshell in December talking about they're gonna take they're gonna claim now Warner Brothers' you know film catalog, right? And this quick mention of it, right? So now one of the big announcements, right? Well, big in quotes, right, is that they're gonna give Warner Brothers releases a 45 day window in theaters, and then it will
Right.
show up on Netflix. So it's like,
I know there's drama, but it's still because yeah, what do you call them? The Ellisons, I think, still really fighting up to get Warner Brothers. Because Warner Brothers is the last like independent network, and the fact that Warner Brothers was, I think, pound for pound, probably the most successful studio this year. Um, on average, they had like Sinners, they had Superman, they had solid things. So like Netflix, uh, kind of making the right call by still trying to, at least trying to look like the good guys and all of this. And that's why I say staying with Netflix is not the worst idea at this point. Like again, don't love it, don't love that they bought Warner Brothers, but like this is the best of the worst options, I suppose, at this point. So is that yeah, go ahead.
right, and also too, I'm not gonna make a whole debate about it, right? But also too, I was just thinking about it while I was watching people's reviews of this season of Stranger Things, right? They pretty much do their own take of like what HBO and Stars and Showtime have been doing for years, right? Where they
Right.
have where they will take like the theatrical releases once it's under a particular production house, whatever it is, right? And can remember how it is, right? Like when a movie comes out in theaters, it's like about a few months later, let's just say 3 or 4, and then it shows up on Stars or HBO, for example. But look at HBO, for example, right? And look at what they did with Game of Thrones, for example, right? Giving us like a real cinematic show, right? Well, cinematic,
Right.
giving it, like that, right?
Right.
But
Well, right. The new Game of Thrones spin-off came out. Yeah,
yes, which I hear
right,
great things about, and yes, that is
right, yeah.
I really can't wait to see that show, right? But yeah, they could come and say, well, HBO had Game of Thrones, right? So we're kind of doing the same thing, right? But the window is a lot smaller between
Right.
theatrical releases and Netflix releases now, so that gonna be real weird now, because again, 45 days, we're not talking about 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Is this like
So
what?
which is basically a month. No, I mean, I'm not super surprised because that's basically what the rule of thumb for this, for all of the like the early leaks was happening anyway. And look, sorry to say it, you're stuck in that spot, right? Sorry to say it. Like right now, it have no like answer to how to deal with the internet, however it is, especially in today's these are streaming. So like, yeah, they kind of big studios kind of stuck unless you're really gonna make a big event or make a real rule attempt to come out and get people to get out of their house to watch this. Yeah, nobody going to theaters anymore. I mean, the only company that could see bring it back, well, for like again, I don't want to get into much of this, but basically I mean, I suppose it's relevant because of the nature of Stranger Things and Netflix, but the middle film, right? What we call the middling film or the medium sized film, only 8 to 4, right? Showing signs of that, right? Um, that is it. Like I can't see. I really think that the medium film in the next few years will be dead or not. I mean, the
Right.
only test of this, my line in the sand, because the last decade pretty much killed it. But like it could come back maybe. But like the line in the sand going to be well, doomsday. Actually, where Marvel going to go? If Marvel gets successful, if this is very successful, then I think the idea of the middle film going to die forever. But if Doomsday fail and the MCU kind of fall apart, I don't know if it'll fall apart, but you get my point. Or it would have the level of attraction or power that it'll have before, then that would be it. Like because now we now enter the second half of the decade, and this is going to determine where we're going to go, and it boils down to that and E24 and how successful E24 is. Because like I watched, well, I saw Marty Supreme the other day. I ain't gonna give a review, but
Oh,
until the proper.
I know it's coming out on digital, but here's the thing:
Right.
as we about to
What
wrap
happened?
up, as we about to wrap up here, folks. Well, at least my section. At the time of us recording this, a few days from now, the Oscar nominations list is going to come out, right? So I don't know if, based on where Marty Supreme lines up there, if our local cinemas actually going to put it out. But I do know that in early February it's coming out on digital, so I'll be waiting till then, right?
Right, well,
so-
I didn't get a proper screener, so I'm not gonna review it.
Okay.
I didn't get a proper screener.
Yeah. Also,
I wait for it to come out on digital. But my point is that
sorry.
Marty Supreme is is the middle film. That's what middle film should have looked like. Yet it Oscar baity, putting in quotes. But no, this is like the size of a middle film and how it should look like, because Marty Supreme is one of the biggest Netflix budget so far. Sorry,
biggest E24, yeah.
Right, E24 budget so far, but it's roughly the size of what a middle film should be, which is like $50 to $80 million, and $70 million. So like, all right, cool. That's where I think that's where A24 should be. A24 should cement themselves as the medium-sized studio. I would not mind that. They don't need to be small anymore, right? Medium-sized, build from there, and then build up a more interesting working conceit. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, the last point on Stranger Things and its legacy. You could go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say that we might be getting Hamnet. I say might because, when it comes to shows of that nature, right, more artsy films, they will announce that they're coming out, and then on the day of, they'll be like, let me just keep on showing the housemaid, and they just cop out and move on, right? So I just seen this because I don't know if once that Oscar nomination list comes out and Hamnet gets nominated, if they will take the chance and put it out there, right? I guess we'll see, right? But yeah, as I wrap things up, right? So yeah, people could go online and complain. And listen, at the end of the day, I'm not gonna watch every single review talking about the positive and the positives and negatives of the show, right? I accept the season for what it is, but it's one of those seasons that I feel like if I just watch one more review, I'll be like, yeah, that's true, boy, that's true. But for me personally, it's not gonna take away what I got from it emotionally, just entertainment wise as well, right? I'll just make one last point. I'm not even gonna stop to talk about the whole scene with Noah Schnapp's character, Will, coming out as gay, and people find it to be so cringy, and it stopped the show to say that, and the excuse around it is that
everybody's complaining about this, yeah.
But not that it's not because he came out, right? It's because he said, oh, Vecna, no, because they have this whole mental hive mind thing. Is a long story, right? But they say that Will says that Vecna could use his own thoughts and emotions to sabotage them, and there's a moment where that actually happens in the show, right? So he says, well, better you know this in case something happened to me, and then he does it.
Right.
I just felt personally like this. His acting in that was great. I will say wholeheartedly, Noah is the MVP of this show because hands down, they give this man a lot to do. This man acted his ass off, and yeah, he killed it in this season, boy. Like I was like, shit, like, dog, they giving you like real like dramatic shit to do and say. I'm like, what? You know what I mean? And I mean, episode 4, the way how that ends, that's all I'll say without spoiling anything. Is like, yeah, boy, like, dog, Noah, like I fucks with you, Dre. Noah, the MVP, boy. Holy shit, right? Man, like he really stood up. He really stood out amongst the main cast though in this season, in my opinion, right? But yeah, people could go and complain about, oh, this was mid and this was bad and all that. But at the end of the day, Netflix wins because people are still talking about this show weeks after them, after the first two halves and then the finale comes out, right? Because and even they move very, very strategic, right? First half was around Thanksgiving, second half was on Christmas Day itself, and then the series finale was All Year's Day, right? So yeah, they just kind of pace things out in such a way where it's like, yeah, people will keep talking about it until the next show comes out, right? But yeah, at the end of the day, this is Netflix at the height of the powers is saying, here's what we could still we can make cinematic shows at the level of an HBO or to a lesser extent Stars or Showtime. We could do that, right? But now that we're gonna be taking Warner's catalog now. Yeah, it's like we could pretty much do whatever we want. We could pump like X amount of money into whatever budgets to whatever shows we have, Dread, and rival the stuff that will be coming out through Warner and other companies as well too, right? So yeah, this is straight up world domination shit, Dread. That's the best way I could sum up the final season of Stranger Things. So you could complain about the flaws and the nitpicks to your heart's content, but nah, Netflix is the winner, right? And the Duffers win too, right? Because they got their dream off the ground, and I know they're gonna be executive producing some show later on this year. I just can't remember the name of it, but sky's the limit for them, right? And the same thing with the cast as well. My thing is though, Millie really need to get out of that Netflix, nest and really branch out into more like Hollywood films, you know what I mean? But I understand, right. You know what I mean? She was working with them for 10 years now. I don't blame she. I don't blame she for the, the Holmes and even Electric State, even though that was kind of mediocre, right? Yeah, but yeah, she just need to break out of that shell, Yeah, it's not her fault. It's the Russos, right? And hopefully the Russos will give us the apology through Avengers Doomsday, right? So yeah, I talk long enough, right?
I go mention that in going forward, because I noticed a little pattern with something here, boy.
Okay. But yeah, so for me, I will give this final season a light to decent 4 out of 5. I thought it was a very satisfying way to end the show. Flaws and all, I understand the flaws, but I am honestly not gonna stop my life and be like, that's true, what that guy said. Yeah, they really could have done this better, I already pointed out the issues I had. For me, again, one that people don't really bring up to. You have Linda friggin' Hamilton, Sarah Connor, the OG, the icon, Tread, and they give her little to do. Like, even Matthew Modine had more to do in the last season that, Linda had in this season. I mean, come on, man. Like, is Linda Hamilton, Tread, what? Like, she not, oh gosh, God forbid if they actually sign off on that Terminator follow-up to Dark Fate and they pair with Arnold again, I'll be like, oh god, really? You know what I mean? But they really could have given her more to do, right? But yeah, I don't have the time to stop to nitpick this show because the show is done, right? At the end of the day, right? So we can all move on, right? And I thought just that final moment where you see where everybody goes, where the characters are analyzed and where they're going to be and whatnot. Even Elle as well too, right? Was thoroughly satisfying to me, right? And the show as a whole, I will give a decent to strong 4 out of 5. It is a show that I thoroughly enjoyed, just from start to end. It started off with the whole nostalgia thing, and yes, at times it leads a little too heavy on it, but I feel like, it has its own identity. It is this Stephen King sci-fi horror 80s blockbuster tribute show. That's what it is. But at the end of the day, it's really about the characters and how likable and relatable they are. The characters is really what gives the show its strength, right? At the end of the day, right? Just some very great characters, very memorable characters as well, too, right? It's just that I would say with season 4 and 5, is just that they just let these special effects kind of smother them. That was the problem. At least to me, that was a big problem with it, right? But I will make the argument as a wrap up here. I just reiterate to myself here, right? You could say it's the Duffers, right? You could say they were more ambitious with it. They just wanted to do more, give a bigger scope to everything. But really, it's Netflix. It's really them again. Just wanted to assert dominance as far as streaming goes, as far as just film entertainment goes. This is Netflix, right? Again, like I say, Netflix is the winner. Netflix is the reason why you complaining about the visuals being the way how they are. That's why they get Weta and ILM to be in this trip, because it's Netflix. Right. It's like, yeah, we running shit now, bitch. That's what it is. And I would say Stranger Things was a show where they kind of solidified that for better and for worse, right? And that's all I'll say, right? So I don't know if you have any last things to say about Stranger Things and the legacy of it, or at least from what it is, or the bits that you saw, or what you heard about the final season, and then you can move on into Starfleet Academy, which, by the way, I haven't seen. The reason why I wanted to see it, honestly, was because of I would say I'll call her by her ring name, her in ring name. Yeah, Becky Lynch, as in the wrestler herself. Becky Lynch is in this show. I'm like, I am
Right.
curious to see
Right.
where she is, right? But I guess you'll answer that question. But yeah, anything you want to say about Stranger Things before we move on to Starfleet Academy?
Not so much. I mean, it's just an interesting legacy with respect to like how it catered to a young audience, but an older audience with respect to nostalgia, and yeah, you could say the ending not great or whatever it is, but like it's mostly fine. I think that it's not it's mostly fine with its conceit and why it work for. Like I understand its popularity and why it works for what it is, but yeah, that is it. Moving on from that, let me get into Star Trek.
Yeah. So like I said, literally about a minute or two ago, didn't get a chance to watch Starfleet Academy. My one reason to see it was, to see where they throw in, McGill, Becky Lynch, right? Also, Holly Hunter, haven't seen her in a long
Right.
while, so I want to see how she is incorporated into this, right? But so far, what I've been hearing is people are liking it. They liking the light-hearted tone of it, the emphasis
Right.
on a younger generation. So
Right.
I still have not seen the Lower Decks, but kind of picking up on sort of, is it Lower Decks or Prodigy? I think like one of those two. The what are the
Kind
research
of,
shows that have younger
it pulls,
actors?
it pulls on both. It pulls on both.
Okay, yeah. But
Yeah.
at the moment, I will not be surprised if there are some, diehard Trekkies who not feeling the approach. I don't
Right.
know,
Right.
but
Right.
I guess you being a Trekkie, you could answer
Yeah.
that, right? But yeah, the
It's,
floor is
it's
yours. Take it away.
usual. Yeah, it's usual internet, kerfuffle, crowd who will, poison you well or not, or just complain about it before the fact. They didn't see the show, but they say, well, it's not looking like good or whatever it is. It's fine. I watched the first two episodes and I digging it. It's mostly fine for me. A handful of cliche trappings, and yeah, of course, the unfortunate stain of GG is still on the Trek franchise. So his influence is still there. But it's reasonably well executed, for what it is.
But if I could
Vibe
just
wise,
ask a quick question, right? So
right,
forgive me, I still have not watched Strange New Worlds. I only watched the series premiere. That's the only thing I watched so
right,
far, right? So
right,
the
right,
whole
right, right.
JJ stuff, right? Is it because this show is a spin-off, or is it a sequel or prequel to Star Trek Discovery, which I thoroughly enjoy. I really, really dug that
Right,
show.
right. So yes, this show also kind of operates as a kind of loose backdoor pilot to Star Trek Discovery. You're correct
Okay.
about
All right,
that.
but is it because
Yeah, yeah. So
it's based off of Star Trek Discovery is why we still have that J.J. Abrams stain into the
yeah,
Stellar
yeah, it's
One?
the same. It's the same. My thing is that by now you should change. You should try to change things to make it look like a unique look. But whatever, it's fine. It didn't bother me too much. Yeah, as I say, reasonably well executed. Vibes wise, it feels like a slightly older take on Prodigy, right? It comes across like Prodigy was a test kitchen for this show, right? That's the whole thing with the show. It's just it playing with that idea and it going with the conceit of it. What
Well,
else?
if you don't mind, you could just give me a brief run through in terms of what it's
Yeah.
about,
Let
and
me
then you
just
could go on.
yeah. That's just the so basically what it's about. Right. So it's a kid named Caleb Mir. His mom is played by our girl She Hulk, right? Maslani, Tatiana, right? Tatiana Maslani.
Oh, she in
She
this
she
too.
plays his mom.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
she plays mom. She plays mom in the beginning. She's like, oh, what she yeah, shit, that's She Hulk. Okay, cool. And then, yeah, so basically they this is before the events of the burn solve itself. So let us do a quick timeline run. Uh, when Discovery came to its third season, it had the burn, this event that caused a bunch of like dilithium to blow up or whatever it is, and basically it pushed the Federation backwards, and they still have to explain why a bunch of like other things didn't happen or to sort it out or whatever it is. But basically, the Federation kind of had a soft collapse, and so people started couldn't be rescued, and those Federation became a kind of soft consulate in areas where it was isolated. So Holly Hunter's character, she was like a commander. She ended up having to become like a kind of like a jurisdicted governor protectorate in this area, and they had to kind of treat crimes as vicious. So what happens is that Caleb's mom got caught up in a crime that resulted in the murder of a Starfleet pilot, I think, and so the crime was end up becoming much more. Basically, it was like the equivalent of a federal crime, and she had to make time and was separated from a child. So Caleb got separated from his mom from that point on. And what he did, he when he was 6 years old, he stole when he hung up, he stole her Federation, like her tag, her comm badge effectively. But the comm badge could do a bunch of other things in terms of getting away. And he effectively escaped. And so he went missing for 15 some odd years. And then, up to the point in time of the storyline when Michael Burnham and the Discovery crew sought out the Burn storyline, and now the Federation could come back together. Oded Ferris character from Discovery, he's the head of Starfleet effectively. He comes to collect Holly Hunter and start up to have her head the new academy, because now for the first time in 100 years, 120 years or so, it have a Starfleet Academy for the first time. That's the world building they're building with. Again, I still not a big fan of the Burn storyline, but it's fine. It's a good place to build from. So that's what the story is. So Caleb now is 21 years old, and he's like kind of renegade. And then Holly Hunter finally they find him, and he's like a criminal. He have a big rap sheet. So what she now, because she kind of blame herself and for his life now. His life turned out pretty bad because she resigned from the job. Um, she resigned from the job of being in Starfleet because of that. She went to some school on Beijing to mind children, to mind little children. And that's basically where the run is from. So it's Holly Hunter and Caleb as the two characters. And basically, she asked him to come to become a student. And I'll help you find your mom. Because they had to find your mom because for some reason the mother never contact him, even though she gone rogue or gone missing. So they basically the big plot conceit is him finding his mom. So that's the main thing. And as I said, I think it's okay, right? I think it's not that bad. As I said, it's a backdoor pilot. It's a test kitchen of Prodigy because of using younger children. And then it's also a backdoor pilot because there was an episode of Discovery where Tilly had to like mind some students for an episode. And it's like, okay, this feeling like a Starfleet Academy backdoor pilot, kind of loose kind of thing. The main character is great. That is the main reason why it works. One, he has great screen presence. Sandro Rosta. I don't know him in anything else before this. Like I think he's just probably like a theater actor or something. Like I have no idea who this dude is. I never seen him in anything before. But he have great screen presence. He have height. He's look good. Great character. He reminds me of like a kind of older version of Dal in Prodigy. He feels like that, and it working for that. So they know, is all these other side characters. Or one other character who's like a hologram. It's like, okay, it does lean to a lot of conceits about like students. And yes, I know a lot of people complaining about the whole, Star Trek 90210 or Melrose Space or something like that, right? Like these dumb little puns. But I don't really see the problem with that. So the
Melrose
show does
Space, really,
yeah,
guys,
yeah, yeah,
really,
yeah.
guys.
Really, the puns is right itself. But yeah, I don't see like necessarily a problem with that per se. I mean, we could debate about if it's Star Trek or not. It's trying to do its own thing and be its own thing. This is my problem. Look, we could get into this debate about Star Trek. I am not. I am not in the camp of caring to get another show in the 25th century and just be more Star Trek. I don't really care for that, to be honest. Like they need to do new stuff, and I rather new and weird than that and try something weird instead of like just doing new old thing. Like I know a 7 of 9 show might be interesting, maybe, right? But I don't really care, to be honest. Like it that not like particularly interesting to me, and I would rather do something in 32nd century, make it weird, make it different, do something different and tell that story. This is something that we look. This is something that was hinting at for a while now, right? They clearly want to cater to a younger audience. They clearly want to do. They clearly know what they want to be, and you could argue this is a flaw, but I think this is by intention. The whole 90210 is by intention. I don't think they necessarily shine away from that, and it does have that usual, you know, characters, the young and is love triangles and the usual bullshit, and it's up to you how you want to handle that or not. It don't really bother me one way or the other. But it's for the audience, and it's whether or not it'll work. I so far people whose opinion I generally respect when it comes to Trek say they've got access to the later episodes. They say it liked it. I so far I've seen with the first 2 episodes. I've liked it so far. The side characters are good. Like it have like one more. She's like a funny side character, but like like world building wise is interesting how this person exists, which is a person who's a Gemini mixed with a Klingon. I forget her name, but she's like this British comedian. She's pretty good. They bring back Tig Notaro from Discovery. She's good in this because she's like the engineer teaching at the academy. And then yeah, the big guest person who comes back is Robert Ricardo as the hologram, right? The doctor, and they have a side character who's connected to him in some way. And like, okay, and I think the tone is fine. Yes, it's bubbly, but it's supposed to be like that. It's playing with a lot of interesting conceits. The second episode was interesting because it had to bring back Betazoids back into the Federation, and that was a whole drama with respect to that. Um, Again, I think it's fine, mostly because the pacing is fine and the main character is great. Like I like the main character. He works, good screen presence. He's a good actor. And I want to see more of this dude going forward. So it's that. I Yeah, I don't hate this. Like I'm somebody who just try to stay away from the internet. You know, kerfuffle, meltdowns, national teeth stuff over this. So it don't bother me one way or the other. I didn't really have my brain poison. I saw the trailer, it didn't look great. But I was like, I'm gonna give it a shot. And yeah, first two episodes, this was fine. Like I don't know where's the big argument here. Watch it yourself, complain about it and nitpick about the plot and see, if this is a terrible plot line or not. As I say, the burn was something that I thought what was at best clumsy. But they didn't need to explain it. You see, the thing, see when something happened and everybody want demand answers from it, they'll explain it later. Hey, how come blah blah blah? Usual questions will come up with this kind of world building. I don't care about that. When they find time, they'll explain it. It had a bunch of shit that Star Trek take forever to answer, and then when they find the answer, it had a good payoff and it made sense. Just give them time to explain it. Who cares? You don't have to answer it immediately. You could probably have some little shitty throwaway line to address it, but nobody care about them kind of thing. Just tell your story, and build from there. And so far, it's a decent enough story. Again, usual cliche trappings with a couple things involving Kayla, but it's like I expect. Paul Giamatti is okay. I don't really love him too much. He just feels like just a placeholder for like, okay, villain, I have to sort this villain out to get to my task, and eventually I think he's too big of a star to be staying in the show for this long, so it's fine. That kind of thing. But it's moving on. Solid premiere in my opinion. I dug it for what it was. That was the first episode. The second episode was a fun little conceit, and yeah, I'm gonna be watching it. I'm not like hyper over it or anything like that. It's coming out on Tuesdays. I'll watch it. It's fine.